What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown, and this is Heresy Financial. It seems like every day we wake up and look at the news and find out there's more and more manipulation happening all across different areas of the market. Whether it's the bond market that is manipulated so that interest rates are negative when the free market would never do that by itself, or whether it's gold when we look at the bullion banks and the trading and the contracts, how paper trading suppressing the gold price, or whether it might be giant whales that are buying and selling something like Bitcoin in order to drive the price up and down, or whether it's something just as simple as a bunch of shorts piling on a small stock to drive down the price, resulting in a potential for a short squeeze later. Here's the bottom line. If a market is really manipulated, that is an enormous opportunity to profit. Let me say it again. If a market is manipulated, either higher or lower, that is an enormous opportunity to profit. And I'll show you how. Ready? Let's dive in. 300 years ago, there was a man named John Law. If you don't know his story, I highly recommend doing some research. He's got a fascinating story what happened with him and the banking system in France. I'm going to give you a very brief rundown. Basically, he got the charter to run the national bank for France. His goal for doing this was that so he could provide extra funding to the government so that they could spend money on different social programs. But economically, they weren't the strongest, and so the way that he had to do this was not by taxing extra. The first thing he had to do was get everybody to stop using gold and silver coins. In order to do this, he made his currency redeemable for gold and silver and showed how that paper currency that he issued was more convenient to use than gold or silver coins. In doing so, he was able to collect a massive amount of gold and silver from the population. Following this, in order to increase the amount of purchasing power that the Bank of France had, he had to back it up with more than just the gold and silver reserves. So the next part of the plan was to create a large asset, and this was the Mississippi Company. So in addition to the gold and silver, now his currency was backed up by the actual land that they owned in America. Well, as you might expect, as every central bank usually does, they started to print a lot more money, and people started to get skeptical and say, hey, there's a lot more money in circulation than it seems like there would be assets to back it up. Just like if a stock continues to issue more shares, the price would fall. But John Law had a clever trick up his sleeve. He knew that his currency was basically backed up by shares of the Mississippi Company. So what did he do? He printed more money to buy shares of the Mississippi Company. That drove the share price of the Mississippi Company up, which by nature then kept the value of his currency inflated. Now, in case you haven't made the connection yet, let me make the connection for you. There's a currency that's being printed that is backed up by the value of an asset. The asset, though, is being purchased by the creation of new units of the currency. Kind of similar to a system where you have the printing of dollars backed up by the asset treasuries, and dollars are being printed by the Federal Reserve to purchase treasuries, which their value is being inflated because they're artificially being purchased by the dollars that are being printed. See where this is going? There were a few people in that time, one of them was Richard Cantillon of the Cantillon effect, who realized, hey, this can't end well. The natural price of the asset is a lot lower. Said another way, the market price would be a lot lower absent any intervention. So what did people like this do? They sold their shares because you're able to sell them at an artificially high price. If somebody who doesn't care about profitability is printing money because they have a monopoly on the ability to create money and using that to buy an asset at an artificially high price, that means you are selling it at an artificially high price. You're banking profit. And yes, that means the deeper that real interest rates go, the more incentive there is for the rest of the world to start selling bonds, specifically treasuries, because there's an entity who has a monopoly on printing money whose goal is to keep the price of those treasuries high, no matter how many people sell. Now, that's an extreme example of something very large scale. You can move lower scale and look at something like gold, who many people say the price is manipulated because of the bullion banks, the paper shorts, all of that. And I get it from a short-term perspective. It certainly seems like there's at least some impact on the price of gold, which means that if the price of gold is at least even short-term manipulated lower, the people who are doing that are giving you the opportunity to purchase that asset at a discount. A built-in discount. That means when the manipulation reverts or ends, the fair value is already higher than what it's currently being bought at. It's the exact same thing that happens with short squeezes. When you have something like GameStop that happened a couple of months ago, when everybody is short GameStop. Everybody was short. All of the big institutions. It was a massive short interest on that stock and many others. When you have a situation like that happening, that is technically manipulation. I mean, not in the illegal sense, because everybody's just shorting a stock they think is going to go down, but ultimately when you see something like that, there's an imbalance in the market. The fair value is much higher than what the market price is. It's just a no-brainer to look at something like that and think, okay, well, if I buy it, that means that once these short positions start to unwind and start to reverse themselves and the market gets back to a more neutral, more flat position, that means that the price has to go up. The fair value is much higher than the current price. And so while it's very, very easy to look around and look at what's happening to the bond market and look at what's happening to the stock market and look at what's happening to crypto or gold or silver, it's very easy to look at that and get discouraged, to get frustrated, to get cynical. And I'm certainly guilty of all this. But it's also possible to look at every single one of these as a massive opportunity, because anytime a market is manipulated, when an asset price is above or below what the fair value is, what the market price would be absent the intervention, that is an opportunity to buy and hold and just wait for that intervention to either collapse, fail, or end. Oh, and just in case you're wondering what happened with Richard Cantillon, he sold all of his shares of the Mississippi Company at the inflated values. He dumped all of his paper currency. He bought a ton of gold and silver with it, made millions in today's dollars, because he understood the fact that manipulation cannot last forever. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.